This is the city of Detroit.
Detroit. The name alone sparks something. Nostalgia, pride, maybe even pity, depending on who you ask. But here's the thing. Whatever you think you know about this city, you're probably wrong. Once, this was the heart of America. Motown poured soul into the airwaves. Factories hummed, turning steel into the American dream. Even the food told a story. Coney dog at 2 a.m., soul food that tasted like somebody's grandmother spent all Sunday in the kitchen. But then, it all collapsed. Fires, flight, and a silence that stretched for decades. Fast forward to now, and people call it the comeback city. But whose comeback is it really? Is this a renaissance or just a rebrand? Because depending on which street you're standing on, Detroit is either booming or still bleeding. To get it, you have to go back. Not just to the riots, not just to the bankruptcy, but to the moment Detroit became more than a city. It became a symbol, a warning, and now, maybe a blueprint.
Out from their homes, watch out for the snipers.
It began early one Sunday morning in late July. Police raided an unlicensed bar in a black neighborhood in Detroit. A crowd gathered. Tempers flared.
This is going to happen all over America. It's going to be a hot world, not a hot summer. It's a hot world.
A rock was thrown, and the city became a war zone.
Fast forward to today, and the city has, on paper, made a comeback. There's a glimmer of new life. The Motor City is trying to shift gears. But what happens when your engine's been running on fumes for too long? You can walk through downtown and see the sleek new condos, the art galleries popping up where warehouses once stood, the bars and restaurants with lines around the block. But you don't have to go far to see the cracks. Just a few blocks away, the scars from the past are still very much alive. Gentrification is happening, yes, but at what cost? Because for every shiny new development, there's an entire community feeling like they're getting shoved out of the picture. You look around and you see luxury apartments going up, but these same buildings are displacing the people who lived here for generations. The city is being repainted, but the brushstrokes are selective. And then there's the food. Once the pride of Detroit, greasy spoons, soul food joints, and the best Coney dogs in the world.
But we begin tonight with breaking news from the city of Detroit. Just moments ago, we have learned that Lafayette, Coney Island, in the downtown area has been closed temporarily to address a rat infestation.
Now you've got a food scene that's being swept up in the new wave of Instagram-worthy meals. The old Detroit, the one where $1 could get you a meal that tasted like home, is slowly fading into something new, something foreign. The question is, who really gets to stay at this table?
What do you think Flamingo's vintage is?
I have no idea.
Safari wear.
Little Moods Pizzeria, nice little Detroit style pizza, but not Detroit style per se, but good pizza place in Detroit.
Cities don't rebuild themselves. Someone has to put up the money, lay the bricks, and decide who gets to stay and who gets pushed out. And in Detroit, that answer isn't as simple as quote-unquote, the people. Detroit's revival has been heavily backed by investors like Dan Gilbert.
Every day, I had a stroke 28 months ago now, and it was a big shock out of nowhere.
And other real estate moguls who've bought up massive swaths of the city. On one hand, they're bringing jobs, development, and money, and on the other, they're reshaping Detroit in their image, one that many lifelong residents don't recognize. While high-rises and trendy coffee shops go up downtown, neighborhoods like Black Bottom and Mexican Town are still fighting for their place. Grassroots organizations, local business owners, and community activists are working to reclaim space before it's gone forever.
They only want to come to downtown Detroit, but not the surrounding areas of Detroit. They think it's too bad for them to hang out in the surrounding areas. Because it's nothing. There's nothing out there. Just liquor stores and people hanging everywhere, but there's nothing there.
Detroit is marketed as a blank canvas, a city up for grabs. But is that really true? Are the people who stayed through the worst of it the ones reaping the rewards? Or is this just a new version of the same old story?
I'm retired here and I'm not moving, I'm not going anywhere. But I'm scared every time I leave home to go to church or anything, you know, and come back home.
If we take down the houses that can't be saved and we sell what's left, I think people will value that.
Cities change, buildings go up, businesses come and go. But if you really want to know a place, taste its food, hear its music, feel the rhythm of the people who refuse to let their history be paved over. You can't talk about Detroit without talking about food. Coney dogs at Lafayette versus an American has been an argument that is now over since Lafayette has a rat infestation problem. But Detroit's food is more than that. It's soul food joints tucked in neighborhoods where the mac and cheese is baked, the cornbread is dense, and the fried chicken tastes like someone's grandmother spent all day making it just for you. Then there's the unexpected, the deep, unshakable influence of Middle Eastern cuisine. Thanks to the largest Arab community in America, places like Al Amir, where the hummus is smooth, the shawarma is sliced fresh, and the flavors have been passed down for generations. Detroit's food tells the story of the people who built it, the ones still holding on one plate at a time. Motown may have put Detroit on the map, but the city's soundtrack never stopped playing. Berry Gordy's Dream of Polished Soul turned Detroit into the heartbeat of America, turning out legends like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and The Temptations. But if you think Detroit's music stopped in the 70s, you're not listening. Techno was born here. The pulsing, futuristic sound that took over underground clubs before spreading across the world started in Detroit's basements, fueled by a city that knew what it meant to rebuild from nothing. Today, the music scene is still relentless, from underground hip-hop to indie rock, still holding on to that raw, unfiltered Detroit energy. If the walls of this city could talk, they'd do it through the Detroit Institute of Arts.
Gotta have art. All you really need is art. When those little things in life make you frown, come on down and get a start. We've got art. You gotta have art. You gotta have art. Yeah!
Tucked in the heart of Midtown, it's home to one of the most important art collections in America. Diego Rivera's Detroit industry murals stretch across the walls. Massive, brutal, beautiful, telling the story of the workers who built this city. And like everything else in Detroit, even this wasn't safe. When the city went bankrupt, there were whispers that the art might be sold off to pay the city's debts. But Detroit, like its people, held on. I guess some things aren't for sale. And then there's this, maybe the most surreal fact to me personally about Detroit. The kind of detail that stops you in your tracks. The chair that Lincoln was shot in and killed, and the car that Kennedy was assassinated in, both of them here, sitting in the Henry Ford Museum. Two of the most haunting artifacts in American history, preserved in a city that knows a thing or two about loss and resilience. You don't expect to find them here, just like you don't expect Detroit to be what it is. The city has a way of holding on to history, whether it's through art, music, food, or the echoes of the past that still shape the present. Detroit has been called a lot of things: ruined, abandoned, forgotten. But spend a day here and you'll see that's not the full story. The city's artists paint murals on crumbling buildings, turning decay into something beautiful. Block parties still spill into the streets, neighbors coming together like they always have. And in places like the Eastern Market, you see a city that's never stopped hustling, selling, and creating, keeping its soul alive one stall at a time. Because at the end of the day, Detroit isn't just a comeback story. It's not some marketing campaign, some gritty underdog tagline. Detroit is what happens when people refuse to let their story be written by anyone but themselves. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in the Detroit River. This is Detroit, Michigan. All right.